Hey, book besties. Happy New Year.
This month, we're finally getting LJ to read Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. We'll be recording this episode at the end of the month, so you have time to read it.
We really hope you'll join us.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to More Than a Book Club podcast. I'm your co host, Leyna.
And I'm your other host, LJ. And today we are very lucky because we have a snow day. Yay.
We're in Texas. We're in North Texas, and we don't get a lot of snow. So, one, it's just exciting to have a little bit of snow.
Yeah.
But a little bit of snow shuts down our whole city.
Which
So,
at this time of recording, we don't have any precipitation yet, but supposedly it's coming.
so LJ, you're a teacher.
Yes.
So you must be really excited.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Like I was watching Facebook and checking the different ISDs Facebook pages, as well as I'm in a Facebook group for all of it has I don't know, 40,000 educators in DFW. And so I was in there seeing, and there were a lot of funny posts in there. Like someone made a bingo card that they would cross off as different districts canceled.
Closed.
So we only have so far today, and we are hoping that we will be canceled for tomorrow. So that would be great to have a 4-day weekend after we came back to school for 2 days.
Just coming off break. I honestly, my daughter was sick today.
Oh
She
no.
has abdominal migraines, so we're used to it. I guess it's a normal sickness, but she wasn't feeling good, so she was at home today. And so when MISD called, I was like, oh, it's just the attendance office calling. And so I just sent it to voicemail, and then my husband texted our group and was like, oh my gosh, no school. So
Oh, that's funny.
excited. So what are you planning to do now that you don't have school?
I plan to read all day. That's my plan.
Like a good plan.
Yeah.
I will probably read most of the day too. What book are you reading right now?
So I'm reading a couple. I am reading Two Twisted Crowns, which is the second in a
Yes.
duology, which you've read, right?
I've read it, yeah.
Yeah, I loved the first
Good.
one, so I'm in the middle of the second one. I'm trying to, read more slowly, enjoy it, don't rush through, so maybe
And I
I'll
feel like
remember
that's a
more.
series you have to go a little slow with.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Just
I listened to the audio and I felt
oh,
like it needed to be consumed slower.
yeah, it's very unique, I'm
Mhm.
thoroughly enjoying it because sometimes the fantasy, especially, romantasy, can get repetitive, and this one is not repetitive at all. It has such a unique story, so I'm enjoying that, and then, of course, I'm reading a thriller, which one of my cousins, Molly, shout out. I know people probably hate that I do that, and these people don't even listen. By the way, she probably has never listened, but she and I both love to read, and we love true crime podcasts and stuff like that, so this is one of the ways that we connect. And so at Christmas, she had recommended this book, Listen for the Lie, and so I was able to get it from the library, so I have that, so I'm
Awesome.
reading those 2, and I'm guessing I will finish both of them today since well,
Yes.
I'm a fast reader, but I'm over halfway through the thriller, and we'll see. I'm just gonna sit by the fire and read, but what about you? Anything else besides reading?
Um, Probably not. I'm listening right now to Iron Flame.
Okay,
Not Iron Flame, Fourth Wing, sorry.
fourth wing.
Got 'em
Like,
mixed up.
getting ready for the
Getting
release?
ready for the next one. So my plan is to finish that probably tomorrow. I'm
Mhm,
about 60 to 70% done now.
nice.
Uh, so get that done, and then something came up at the library hold, and my plan was to go into Iron Flame and just read that, but now I'm like, "Okay, my library hold has come up," and I don't know if you were the one that told me or maybe my sister, but you can get on at different libraries,
Yeah,
and
that was
Houston
your
Public
sister. It
Library.
wasn't me, but I know because my mom does it too.
Shout out Kristin.
Good, see, it's not just
Um,
me.
but she told me that Houston Public Library had one that you can use, and you don't have to be in the area or anything.
Oh, nice.
And the only bummer part is when I'm at my regular library, I have 21 days to read a book, and at Houston, I only have 2 weeks.
Oh,
So it's like, okay, that's not enough time always because
mhm.
sometimes I'll have multiple holds come up at once, and yeah,
Yeah, I understand.
that can be a bummer. But
That can be a bummer. So what are you in the middle of? Besides, so you have that one. Anything else? Or are you just doing a single book?
That's mostly what I'm reading right now. I'm reading a book called Codependent No More
Oh, that
about
sounds
stopping
hard.
being codependent, which is it's a fun read.
Right, right.
It's one of the self-improvement books that I think that I had no idea that I was codependent. And
Yeah,
then
I feel like I probably am.
therapy, it was like doing a test and it was like, "Oh, okay. This sounds like me." And I was like, "Okay, I guess this is me." So, my sister actually recommended that book. We went to the neighbor, um, bookstore in McKinney, in downtown
Oh,
McKinney
cool.
Square, and they had it there, and she was like, "That's a good book." So, I'm
There
reading
you
that
go.
one. It's one that I'm reading very slowly, so
Mhm.
I'm trying to read physical books,
Look at you, Miss
which
Audiobook.
is not me. So, my goal for this year is to read 10 physical books.
Look at
So,
you.
and that is one of the things that we're gonna talk about today is
Yes.
our 2024 reads and 2025 goals.
Yep.
But that is one of my goals is to start reading more physical books just to take that slowness. Like you were
Yeah,
talking about slowing down. And I think that sometimes when I listen to an audiobook, I just go, 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 go. But this will make me slow down and read it at a little different pace.
I like it. So, good job. Yeah, I'm also listening to an audiobook, and it's a very long one. I think I mentioned it maybe before, but it's about concentration camp, a women's concentration camp
Mm.
from World War II, and it's, like, from its inception, and I think through, like, past whenever it closed, and so I'm only in 1942, and I think it opened in
Oh,
1939, and I still have 14 hours left in the book, and that's 14 hours at 1.5 speed,
wow.
so
What's
it's
the
a
book
long
called?
it's called Ravensbrück, and so it's about the
Okay.
Ravensbrück concentration camp, and where I'm at now, I'm at a point where I'm like, "Oh, I don't know if I can listen to this," because and I knew this was coming from reading fiction books about it, that was the first time I ever heard about it, I think isn't it I know it's in Lilac Girls, and I
I was
think
about
it
to say
might
Lilac Girls, if you had read that one.
yeah, and I don't know if it's in The Nightingale, I don't remember, or if not, but I
I
remember
think it's not.
it was a big part of Lilac Girls, and I had never
Mhm.
heard of it, and then hearing, like, the medical experiments and stuff, and so
It's
I'm in
horrible.
I'm in the middle of that, and I'm where they're talking about, like, cutting off limbs and, like,
Blech.
causing major infections, breaking bones, and causing horrible infections to test out antibiotics and all this stuff, and it is horrible. It was horrible to read in fiction and know that this had happened, but to hear these survivor accounts
Mhm.
that either went through stuff or they witnessed stuff, it's horrific, and but it was interesting to hear about the evolution of the camp because I never thought about some of the things that early on concentration camps were considered prisons and they weren't death camps, and that was an evolution, and so I'm where it's partially death camp, partially experiments, and honestly, the experiments sound it would just be better to just be killed than to have to be put through that torture. So yeah,
Yeah.
but I so
Sounds
uplifting.
uplifting.
Yeah, but so on that note, let's talk about 2024. Okay, so what was your goal for 2024?
Mine was I call it my Everest because I wanted to read 100 books, and I had never read 100 books before, and so this year I read 106, so I was happy with that.
Woohoo!
So
You got
I
it.
beat it.
You smoked that goal. And we're
What about
any
you?
of we're wait, but first, we're well, I guess we'll go to that next. Okay. My goal was 100 and I got to 120, but when we get to like which we can even go to that next if you want format of books. My format, like, 'cause I don't know, do you have the sit well, did you only do audiobooks or do you have any physical
I
ones
think I
too?
only did audiobooks. I may have done one in an actual book, but I don't remember, and I don't track it. So
Yeah.
that's something else I'm gonna have to track this year.
Well, and I think my recommendation I mean, obviously, we have Goodreads, but I love Storygraph, it's free. I mean, there are paid options, I don't use it, and that's where I have all my information for how I did last year, and one of the things and my goal was to have like more audiobooks last year.
Mm,
That was one of the things. And I had for print, I read 21, audio, I listened to 43, and then digital, I read 56. And I will say, if we look at that, if I had not done audiobooks, I would have read 43 less, so I would not even have made 100. And that's because my commute has gotten so long with traffic now that having approximately between an hour and a half in the car each day, and
It
then I
makes a
listen,
difference.
it makes a difference, and I listen on 1.5 to 2, so you can really get them out. So I would have to say that for me, the thing that made it possible for me to even reach that goal was audiobooks, something that I previous years, I maybe did, like, 1 or 2. So
I think I got into 'em, like, 2020, 2021,
mhm.
and just took off with it and loved
Yeah.
it, and I think 2020, COVID year, there was a
Mhm.
virtual race I was doing that was across the state of Tennessee, so you
Mhm.
would track your mileage and see where you were, and
That's cool.
I listened to a lot of audiobooks that year, and that has just kinda kept it going, but now I'm kind of doing the opposite of wanting to go backwards. And you were talking about Storygraph, right?
Mhm.
So, I did download that. I did upload my books, and so I do have information from that because it was actually I had been like, "Why would I wanna track in 2 places?" And now I kinda wanna track in 2 places.
Mhm.
So
I mean, that is what I do, and I'm actually this year because I also got Emily on it this year, and she was like, "There's this January challenge." I hadn't even looked at the other stuff, and so I'm actually normally, I don't even put books on my, like, currently reading. I haven't done it for years because I think I used to, like, I would read a few pages and be like, "Oh, I'm not ready to read this right now," and so I wouldn't trust myself until I got to 50 pages in or 100 pages in a book. But because of this, you have to track that you're reading every day, so I'm actually putting, like, currently reading
Oh,
on both Goodreads and on Storygraph because I wanna get my credit for reading every day, so I have to update how much I read, and I haven't done that in years, so
and
that's new for
I
me.
update pretty regularly on
Mhm,
Goodreads, but I've just been adding Storygraph,
mhm.
like, afterwards, I'll go back and add, like,
Yeah.
4 or 5 books.
Well, and see,
Um,
this is the thing that because I didn't realize, and I've used Storygraph for a few years, it will say, like, average time to read a book. Well, because I
I
would
saw
do that. So
that.
my average time to read a book for last year was 1 day because I would put them all in. I'd be like, "Currently reading, read." And so I'm like, but I also was like, I kinda wanna know how long
It
I
takes to
take
read
to
it,
read a book. I mean, a lot of times it is 1 day, but this past year, it definitely wasn't, especially the audiobooks. Like, it was not, you know, 1
one
day of
setting,
listening
yeah.
to those.
So, the cool thing that I found out with Storygraph was the type of reader I was, the genre of readers,
Mhm.
because I would have never guessed what my top genre was. What do you think my top genre was?
Okay, for you, hmm. I would say, like, fiction, like, general fiction or something like that, because I feel like you read across the board so many things, but I feel like you read a lot of what I would consider smarter fiction. I don't know what the term for that is. You know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
literary fiction, that's maybe that's what I meant.
um, my number 1 was romance,
Really?
but I think that book club
We made you.
has caused me to read more romance,
I
and
love it.
I really think that if you would have asked me a few years ago if romance would be my number 1, I would have laughed at you because I never read romance because I didn't understand how good it was, and
Yeah,
then there are certain authors that just pop out at you, and they're just amazing, and now I go back and read all of their backlist. Abby, is it Jimenez? Jimenez?
Jimenez.
Jimenez. I absolutely love her, and last year, that's one of the ones that I went back and read and reread.
Mm.
What about you? I feel like romance is your number 1 category.
Okay, so it probably was at one point, but I think after the divorce, I definitely stopped reading as much, and I may have talked about this before, and this is not everyone who reads romance, like, I wanna be very clear. I think I read so much romance because I was craving that and wasn't getting that, and to be fair, that's not all on him, that's on me too. I was not making an effort in real life either. So, that definitely used to be. Do you know that that is 1, 2, 3, 4, that is my 5th most common genre.
I am
My
shocked
I know, right? It would have been
with the
number
amount of
1.
sports romances that
I
you
know, but I
read.
I think I only read 1 of those last year, or maybe none. I have a list, so I'm like, I gotta get on that. But my number 1, and I don't think this will be that shocking, but this is completely because of audiobooks, true crime.
I can see that.
I listen to a lot of true crime, and I think that's why I'm enjoying audiobooks more. I do better with nonfiction in audiobooks because I feel like I'm listening to a podcast.
And I don't know, true crime just creeps me out. Like,
That's
I would
fair.
rather do vampires
Mhm.
and monsters than real people who kill people. Like, that just
Yeah.
that's terrifying to me.
I don't know, I have a fascination. I went through there were a few, serial killers where I listened to multiple books about them. I kinda got on there's a girl that she died, she was old, but Anne Rule, I didn't and I so I read one of her or listened to one of her books, and I was like, "Oh, this is from the '80s. Oh, it said she was this, like, really popular crime writer." So I asked my mom, I'm like, "Do you know who Anne Rule is?" And she's like, "Yeah, I know who she was." And I'd never heard of her, and so I've listened to a few of hers, but she actually was friends and worked with Ted Bundy before
Oh
all
my
this came
gosh.
out, and he knew that she had been, like, contracted to write a book about whoever it was that was doing all these murders before anyone knew Ted Bundy was, like, a suspect or
'Cause
anything.
he was the Green River Killer, right?
No, Ted Bundy,
No?
no, he just was Ted Bundy. He's the one that he killed I mean, like, they don't have a special name for him, but he killed a bunch of women in Washington and Utah, and then he's the one that went through the sorority house in Florida. Okay, we're gonna have to get you on this. There is a
Okay.
I know you don't like true crime as much, but there is a docuseries on Netflix, The Ted Bundy Tapes, and a few years ago, some of my students watched it, and they were like, "Miss Barber, you have to watch this, like, it's so crazy, and so I did, and what was probably the creepiest thing about this, because it did have, like, some clips of him, because at one point, he was his own lawyer, and there were things where I was like, "Oh my gosh, I can see the charm that
Mhm.
would've tricked women," and it freaked me
The
out because 'cause I'm like
charisma, yeah.
yeah, the charisma, and he was very smart. He's the one that he had a beetle, and he would have, like, a fake cast or crutches and ask women to help him, like, carry his books or put something in his car or whatever, and then would abduct them.
And see, that's the real life stuff that I'm just like, I can't handle it.
I know, but it's so true crime was my top one, thriller was 2nd, fantasy was 3rd, mystery was 4th, and then romance was 5. So,
So, mine were romance, then fantasy, contemporary, which I think
is
you
what I
might
was
think of yeah,
yeah,
me, and then thriller,
yeah.
which I can see contemporary and thriller.
Mhm.
That's what I kinda saw, but fantasy also kinda surprised me a little bit, but I think that was also because we read all the Chronicles of Narnia,
Yes.
we read all of the
Harry
Harry
Potter.
Potter books, we read all the Sarah J. Maas,
Yep.
or
So, yeah.
I read.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We still need to get you to read Throne of Glass.
I will I have to say I did not maybe people don't like me for this, but I was not a huge Court of Thorns and Roses fan,
Yeah, I
but
know.
I loved
Crescent City.
Crescent City. I was like, "No, I'm gonna forget the name of it." But Crescent City was the best.
I think
So
you will so, ACOTAR, I feel like it is more romance than fantasy. It's very
mhm,
driven by the romance, whereas Throne of Glass is not, which I feel like the same thing about Crescent City. Like, yes, it was romantasy, but there was so much plot, and I think you will like it. Even though Allie didn't, but there's a
mm,
reason that when you read it, I will tell you
okay.
why, and
I
it
have to
kind of
read it first.
yeah, yeah. It's one of those things where you just like the whole Tamlin thing, like, where you're just like,
Mm.
"Oh." But anyway, it's fine, but we'll get you eventually.
So we have our genres down.
Yes.
Who was your most read author
Ugh.
or
I
authors?
hate I hate this one because I listened to a bunch of this guy's true crime books, and they weren't that good, but it was something to read, and they were, like, part of the I didn't have to buy them, like, they were part of the
Okay.
premium subscription on, Audible. So, Ryan Green, and here's what annoyed me he's a true crime writer. What annoyed me the most is put, like he would say in that they thought this, they thought that, like, in the mind of the murderers and of the
Mhm.
victims, and so I'm like, "Okay, the victims were killed. How do you know that that's what they were thinking?" You know? So that kinda bugged me because it wasn't as authentic. He took some creative liberties, but
Okay.
then the next one was J.K. Rowling
Yep,
because
that
we
was my
both
number 1.
and then Frida McFadden, then C.S. Lewis, then Agatha Christie, then Anne Rule, who I mentioned, then your favorite, Stephen King.
Ugh. I was like, "Oh, Abby Jimenez?" No, Stephen King.
Stephen King. Oh, I can't wait for us to do an episode of that, and we will have to have Allie and Emily on here because we each need backup.
Yes, because Stephen King is just the worst.
And I think Stephen King is awesome. So,
So my number 1 was J.K. Rowling. No surprise there because we
w
did read all the Harry
yeah. Was
Potter.
C.S.
But
Lewis the
then
next one?
well, my second was tied. So
Okay.
Catherine Center
Okay.
and C.S. Lewis tied for second, and then Abby Jimenez and Sarah J. Maas were tied for third,
Nice.
which I was like, "Okay, I've read the same amount of books from each of those." So that was kind of
That is
a
cool.
nice thing.
That is cool. Yeah, you'll appreciate this, though. Rounding out my top 10, the last 2, which were tied because they are co-writers, Suzanne Valenti and Caroline Peckham from Zodiac. Because I read 4 of was it 3 of the Zodiac Academy books? I reread them, and so
So I had listened to you talk about Zodiac Academy
mhm.
at book club, and mostly in the sense of, "Emily, is it okay if I read this book?
Yes.
Can I read this, or is there a giant cliffhanger?" And Emily would
Look it
I
up
guess
for
she,
me.
like, scanned it or, like, whatever, and then would tell
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
And I was like, "What is this?" And so one day I was just sitting here and it was available, and so I got it, and I'm like, "I don't know even know what I'm reading, but I'm gonna try it." And I've hooked myself on these
Yep.
books. I've read 3 of them now, and I
Are
still
you doing Ruthless Boys now?
I debated it, and I don't know if I'm going to.
Okay. Just let
I'm
me know because
putting
I'm in 4 and I mean, it wasn't like it
you're
was
waiting.
hard to wait. I'm waiting for you because then we can read together.
Well, now I have to read all of these other books that can
I know.
it's
I
a
know that too.
problem.
That too. It's okay. I have other fantasy books I can keep reading too.
Yeah. But I do really wanna keep going with that series, and they're
Mhm.
still actively writing those books, aren't they?
No, they might be
Or is the
writing
series
spinoffs,
wrapped?
but it was supposed to end with book 8, and then it didn't. And
Oh,
so then they did a book 9, and that came out, I think, last year. So I was like, "Emily, can
okay.
you confirm that
That
it
this is it.
really is the end?" And she's like, "Everything on the internet says so, that everyone's satisfied." Because she knew that even, like, 7 and 8 because when I started reading them, I think 7 was out. And she's like, "You will hate that cliffhanger. You will not be able to handle it." And so then 8 came out and she's like, "Nope, another bad cliffhanger." But then 9 apparently wraps it up. But they're
There's a
long. They get longer and longer.
well, that was one of the things I noticed because the first one was really short. It was
Yeah.
like 8 hours listening time, and then
Mhm.
it jumped to, like, 13 and then 18, and I was like, "What is happening?" But it held your attention.
It does, yeah.
It
And I
didn't
like that
feel like it was yeah.
I do feel like we get more and more character perspectives as you go.
Mhm.
It's like they wait until you kind of know the characters. So, like, it's like you get used to, like,
Yeah.
4 of them, and then, okay, now we're gonna add a couple more, and so it's easier to follow.
And that is one thing I will say is there's a lot of characters.
Mhm.
And so I was like, "I need a map of who all these characters are,
Yeah.
where they are, who they go
Mhm.
with, what's
Yep.
going on."
Yep.
That would be helpful.
And what they are. Like, are
Yes,
they a
what their
vampire? What they're,
mhm,
oh, what's it called?
order?
Yeah, their order. Thank you.
Okay.
'Cause I
I'm
was
like,
like,
"What's
"What
the
is"
right word?"
yeah, their order, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway,
So what were your
our
top books?
um, well, yeah, let me go back to my other document here. So we're talking favorites, right? Yeah. Okay.
Favorites of the year for
Favorites
2024.
of the year. Okay, so the first one and I don't I guess maybe this would be my favorite of the year. It's a tie for the top one. The Women by
Okay.
Kristen Hanna. Did you read that one this year or
That
last
is
year?
on my
Okay.
top list. Mhm.
That one and then Lady Tan's Circle of Women. They kinda tied. And I
Okay.
will say about The Women, I don't think I've really ever read a book that happened during the Vietnam War that was so focused on the war, and I did not realize and that kinda comes up in the book, how many women were over there
Served.
as well
Mhm.
in, like, medical things, and so it was so good. So
Well, just thinking about that in general, I mean,
mhm,
thinking about all the wars of human history, women have
mhm.
served different roles and they weren't recognized for it.
Yeah.
I think if you've read, Lilac Girls, there's
Yes.
other books that come along, and I think it's Sunflower Sisters,
I need to read the other ones. Maybe I'll do
and
that this year.
the Sunflower ones, is the Civil War, like, it goes back to her
Oh.
grandma or great-grandma or something like that,
Oh, that's
and it's
cool.
talking about her role, and she's, I believe a naval nurse,
Okay.
and it was really interesting, and those are the kind of books that I feel like you learn so much,
Mhm.
and it wasn't just about the war itself, but the after effects
Yeah.
and the social dynamics during war
Mhm.
of your found friendships and maybe relationships that wouldn't have happened
Mhm.
or would have happened
Yeah.
or could have been, that kind of thing,
Mhm.
and that life could change at any minute, and I can't imagine living that way.
No.
Just in our own safe little bubbles here, it's hard to imagine that things could change and
Yeah.
that quickly and drastically.
Mhm. No, that's true. I
It
need
was
to read the other ones.
it's definitely a good book,
Alright, so
The
what
Woman.
was one of yours from last year?
I have I didn't put mine down in an order because
Okay.
it's
Just
really
pick
hard
one
to
then.
pick one. That's just
Yeah.
number
I
1,
know
but I
I
will
think I've got
say,
one. I have 6 on my list to talk about, so
Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, and I think
I need to
we
read
read
it.
that for we
We
did
read A
not read that.
Catherine Sinner. I have it.
Okay,
I borrowed it from Emily, but I haven't read it yet. It's
okay.
that way. It's in a room over there.
So, the thing that I love about her books is that it has a romance, but I think that you hit the nail on the head is that I like the plot, and this
Mhm.
had a really good plot. It had character tie-ins from previous books, which I
Mhm.
also really love. I think
Yeah.
that that is just
I
amazing when
love
that
when
happens, when
authors do that, yeah.
they create this world and the characters are there and you're
Mhm.
learning more about them, and
Yes.
I'm all for that. So, it was a really touching book. It was one that you were there for the romance, but you also felt things.
Yeah.
Like, it dealt with some heavy topics, family dynamics, friendships, different things, and it was like,
Mhm.
man, I wanted to go back and reread it immediately,
Oh,
and that's
wow.
how I feel about all of her books. Like, I got through with that one, and I was like, "Okay, now I need to go back and read all of them in that universe, that set in that time, just
Yeah.
so that I can figure out more information about them, so I can
Mhm.
learn more and remember more."
Very cool.
But
Yeah, I need to read that one. I do have it. It's in there. It's on my list.
it's a really good book, and I think it's won several awards for being, I
'Cause
won't say the best book, but
I read Part of Your World and loved it when I read that
mhm.
one, and so
And part of your world is set in this
yeah, and this yeah.
universe, so
So, yeah. Very
definitely.
cool. Well, I mentioned one of my other ones, Lady Tan's Circle of Women, which
Mhm.
I read on a whim, and so did Emily. That's where I got it, like, the
I
idea
think
from.
Emily had suggested it to
Yeah,
me, and so I
yeah,
read it
she
too.
I think it was one of those where she went into the library and it was just, like, out, and so she's like, "Huh, I'll get this," and she was like, "It was really good." So then I got it, and it's one that I still think about because, again, I I didn't really know the history of, like, foot binding and all of
Mhm.
that, and, and this is I mean, it's based on a real person, what, like, hundreds of years ago, 1,000 years ago, and it takes place in ancient it's China, right?
It's China, and I
Yeah.
can't remember if it was, like, 500 AD or what. I can't remember when
It
it
was
took
a
place.
long time ago.
Yes.
But it was so interesting, and she's, like, kind of trying to be in the medical field to the best of her ability as a woman from the upper class and, um, predominantly as a midwife, but it just was it was so good, and just the family dynamics and all of
Mhm.
that, and there's even, like, a little mystery and stuff, but
And the
yeah,
mystery was, I thought, pretty good because it
it
spanned
was.
years, right? Like, because
Mhm.
it wasn't, yeah. So that was kinda good. Um, I thought that the writing for that one was well done.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it put you in that time period, and it
Mhm.
really took you back, and I
It
thought that
did.
was, you learned so much. Again,
Yes.
historical fiction, I think that's what makes a good historical fiction book,
Yes.
is that it can teach you something,
Mhm.
but also keep you captivated.
Which is why I'm just laughing because 2 of my favorite books from the year were historical fiction, which was, like, not even, like, in the top 10 of the type of books that I read. That's
Maybe
okay.
we'll have to explore that more next
I
year or
think
this
I
year.
think I think I will. Alright, what's another one of yours?
So, this one, The Frozen River.
Oh, yeah, I thought about because I read that right at the around the same time that I read Lady T and Circle of
So did
Women,
I.
and there were some connections.
'Cause they're both midwives,
Mhm.
and I honestly, I just felt like that book, it just spoke to me in the moment. Like,
It was so good.
it was so good,
It
but
was. Yeah.
I would
I
recommend it
understand.
to anybody.
Oh, definitely, I would too. You've between us, you've got 4 thumbs up. Yeah, that one
And
and it was very satisfying.
yes,
If you know, you
definitely.
know. And if you
Mhm.
don't, you should read it and find out.
And what was the other book that she had read that I always forget? Ariel Lawhon.
I don't remember.
Lawhon?
Should I look it up?
Do some gratuitous Googling here.
Gratuitous good reading. I'm gonna go to Goodreads on my iPad here and see.
And The Frozen River was also historical fiction, and wasn't it, it was also based on a true person,
Yep, which is so fun.
which is just kind of a cool idea.
It is. Let me see here. Let me click on her name. Oh, we read another one for book club, Codename Helene.
Okay. I was like,
That's
that's
what
the one that had the French 75s, right?
Yes, that's what I was just
Okay.
thinking, the French 75. So, while I'm looking here, some of her other ones, like, was I Was Anastasia. Is that, like, about the girl who's claimed to be Anastasia?
Possibly. Maybe we'll have to read some more.
Yeah, it says it's about the Anna Anderson's 50-year battle to be recognized as Anastasia Romanoff, which we
Oh,
know that she wasn't because
no.
DNA, but I
That
might have
was
to read
so
that.
7th grade, um, my family was military and we lived in
Mhm.
Germany, and our school trip was to Russia. And so I
Oh.
got to go to where the Romanovs were when they were murdered.
Oh
Not a
gosh.
very talk about happy trips, but we got
Right.
to see the location where that was. We got to go see where Rasputin was killed
Oh,
and
wow.
where because
But see,
they
this would be
poisoned
so
him.
interesting. Depressing
It
slash
was
interesting.
it was so interesting because they poisoned him and he didn't die,
Yeah.
and they ended up shooting him, but we got to see where it all happened. So that was it was kind of interesting. I wish that I could go back now that I'm older and appreciate things more.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
But
I
yeah.
understand. Because I went to London when I was 12, and I'm like and then we did all the day trips around
Mhm,
to, different places, and it would just mean so much more today than it
mhm.
did when I was
You'd
12.
appreciate it more.
I would,
But
I
I
would.
think that you have to travel when you're younger too, so that you get the bug.
Yes. That's true.
That's key.
Alright, so let's see, another one of mine, this is gonna come as no shock, and I'm pretty sure this is if not this one of them is on your list. House of Flame and Shadow. That was the last of the
I did
Crescent City book.
not put it on my list, but
Did
but
Crescent
it was
City or well, Crescent City
no,
was the year before.
I don't think any of them ma none of the Sarah J.
It
Maas made
didn't
it on my list.
interesting, but yeah,
Maybe I
I
just
really
forgot about them because I loved them.
that one, it was the only one that was new to me of those, even though we reread the second one. I reread the second one, y'all read the second one in January.
Mhm.
I had already read it, and so this one, I was, so excited, and I thought there were gonna be 2 more books. So then when I'm getting to the end, I'm like, "Wait, she's wrapping this up really nicely. How is this like, is something really bad gonna happen?" But I loved it, and I feel like the connections that, you know I don't wanna say anything 'cause I don't wanna ruin anything for anyone, but, like, I felt like it was very well done. I was
It was.
satisfied with the ending,
Yes.
so
It was a very good book series, and
mhm,
I appreciate the effort that she put into it and the character building and all of it. I just
yeah,
the world was fantastic. We
yes.
can't beat that.
No,
But
no. Alright, what about
I
you?
have I have one that may not have been on your radar.
Okay.
Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers.
No Oh, that sounds really good!
So it's by Jessie Q. Sutanto, and she's the one that did Dial A for Aunties.
Okay,
It's
I
like a
never
mystery
read that.
series,
I didn't ever maybe I read the first one of those.
and that's on my need to read for next year or for this year. But,
Okay, what's this book called? I that you're just that you're that's on your list?
Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers.
Vera. Yeah, let's see if I can get it from the McKinney Library. It's loading.
And
Anyway, tell me about it. Oh, it's
it
just the
was
audiobook.
so cute. The audio was actually pretty good.
Okay, I'll borrow it. We'll see. I might need it after I finish this Ravensbrück book. It's
Yeah,
so
it is
depressing.
literally so it's Vera Wong,
Mhm,
and she names it because it's a very close association to Vera Wang, and they'll think
mhm.
that it's her tea shop is successful because Vera Wang is successful. She
Gotcha.
is just the cutest little old lady. Someone comes into her tea shop and dies.
Oh,
And so then instead of just immediately calling the cops, she decides she needs to clean. So she goes and does all this stuff. And it's it's a little old lady who it's she's just so sweet and kind and caring, but at the same time, she is an overbearing Asian mom. Like like she fits the stereotype to a T.
that's
Um,
awesome.
wants to know who her son's dating, wants to know what's going on, why won't he call her,
Oh my gosh.
um, and just cooks all the time. But it really felt like a comfort read,
Yeah,
and it was a really good book. I would highly recommend it.
that does sound good, and I got the audiobook, so we'll see. Alright, another one of mine, The Lost Story, which is the one
And
that
I was not as big a fan of that one,
I
which
mean, it was The Wishing Game was a tough act to follow.
yes, The Wishing Game was just so good,
It was so good, yeah.
but I I know everybody else loved it, so
That's okay, you don't have to love it, but I did. It's another one that I think about. I think about both those. I think about The Wishing Game a lot too, and
Mhm.
that one was from the previous year. It was my favorite book from 2023 that I read. I would like
It was such a good book.
I really think The Women of these I think The Women is my favorite from this year, which I'm glad because Kristen Hanna, I hated was it The Four Winds? I hated that book with a
I
passion.
haven't read that.
Here's what I'll say, beautifully written, like, she is an amazing writer, we know this, and maybe this is a good thing. She
Mhm.
made me feel the frustration of the Dust Bowl and how this family's life was going, how this woman's life was going. I was so annoyed and mad the whole book. I wanted to throw it across the room, and then I was not happy with the ending. So,
Mm.
I after that, I was like, "Oh my gosh, what if I don't like Kristen Hanna anymore?" I really did think that, but then
She redeemed herself
she
and then
redeemed
some.
herself this year with The Women. So and my money is on that being book of the month's book of the year. I'm just gonna call it now,
I
and
think
watch me be wrong.
it's made several lists as the book of the year, but
So, yeah. What
yeah.
about you? What's another one?
Here One Moment by Liane Moriarty.
Oh, because she's one that I heard she had kind of there was one, like, Apples Never Fall or something that I heard wasn't very good.
Apples Never Fall, it kinda took place during COVID, and I thought it was good, but I know a lot of people did not like that towards the end of the book, it kinda switched to, well, now everybody has COVID and we all have to wear masks, and the book took a left turn kind of.
Gotcha.
And
Okay.
so I can see how some people did not like the way that because it
Because
kinda just came out of nowhere, which is kind of what COVID did, but
well, and I remember being at Half Price Books and in McKinney, like, our
Mhm.
small little Half Price Books. And there were, like, 15 copies, and I'm like, "That is not a
Oh.
good sign if there are 15 copies of this book." I think Emily was with me, and we were like,
Oh, no.
this isn't good if there's that many of that book." But anyway, but what's
So,
this one that she
I will say this one, Here One Moment, it's, um, people on a plane, and a lady stands up and says, "This is how you gonna" or she says, "I suspect you will die of X, and you will die when you're this old." And
Oh, wow.
so she kind of blanks out, doesn't know what she's doing, but predicts when everybody is going to die. Even children on the plane,
Oh,
like
wow.
everything. And so then it follows all the different stories of the people that were on the plane and what they do with that. So what do they do
Oh.
with that information? One person is going to die in a fight, and so it's gonna be like blunt force trauma,
Mhm.
and he's gonna die within the year.
Oh
So
gosh.
what's he gonna do? One person's gonna die, at a work site accident. So his wife is trying to convince him to quit work because you
Mhm.
can't die at work if you're not working.
Right?
So, it's just everybody's different
Interesting.
perspectives. Um, you learn that her mom was a fortune teller
Oh,
who had the gift, and so then you it was really well done. You learned so
okay.
much, like, the way that she parsed out the information,
Mhm.
it left you hanging there, and you're like, "Oh, now I wanna read more to see what happens next and where that leads to," and she just did a really good job. I will say I don't like the adaptations they've made of her books into TV shows.
Yeah.
Not a big fan.
Yeah,
I
I
think that
only tried what was the first one that,
9 Strangers, Perfect Strangers,
no,
9
what was the
Perfect
one
Strangers.
that had Reese Witherspoon in it? Big Little Lies.
Oh,
That one, I started it, and then I never finished it because I remember I watched the first episode, and my daughter at the time was very young and came running
yes.
in, and there's a very inappropriate scene at the end. I'm like, "Turn off, turn off, turn off." And then I was like, "Okay, well, now I can only watch it if she's asleep or whatever." So I didn't end up finishing it, but then I heard about it, and I was really annoyed that, like, they added, like, one of the characters was having an affair that wasn't having an affair, and I was like, "That doesn't line up with the character in the book." So, like, I was like, "Maybe I shouldn't watch it because maybe I'm gonna be annoyed because I loved the book.
Now I'm trying to remember. Maybe I need to reread that book.
You know, maybe I need to reread it too. Um,
But yeah, I thought,
that one
some
sounds
of her
really
books are
good,
really good. Some of them
or less
are
so.
not. The
Yeah.
series, I kind of they
I
have
don't
great people in them, but
I don't remember what happened, but I remember I really liked the husband, but
yes.
I have no
Was it
memory.
The Husband or The Husband's Secret? I can't
Maybe it
remember
was
now.
the husband's secret. It probably was the husband's secret, I don't know. I don't even remember what happened. I just remember I liked it. So,
I feel like that's half of books is they go in and then they just go away.
yep, true story. So, but I might have to read that one because what is it called again? Here one
Here one
minute?
moment.
Here one moment, okay.
Mhm.
Um, so I have 2 more on my list that I wrote down. Um
Go for it.
And these were both, like, last minute reads that I was
Okay.
actually one of them I expected to be in the top list, the other one was a surprise, and we've talked about this one, The Most Wonderful Crime of the Year, that
I need to read it.
I enjoyed it so much. I don't know what I was expecting. It sounded kind of silly, but it was kind of like Knives Out, but then, like, more of a romance in there. But, like, you have the murder mystery, you have kind of like they're all trapped there, kind of like, "And Then There Were None." You've got it's kind of like the inheritance games, like, it's all
Mhm.
these things kinda combined into one, and so it was fun, but then it also had some suspense, and then it had some romance. So, I don't usually like my mysteries or thrillers with romance, I like them separate because I try not to get too emotionally attached to characters in
'Cause
thrillers.
then they die
Yeah,
or turn out to
but
be the bad guy.
this one was so fun, like, I highly recommend it. It's one that I could definitely see myself rereading around Christmas, and the storyline is that basically this writer gets invited, like, a mystery writer gets invited to this thing, like, a paid thing, and she has no idea who she's gonna see, but to go on this trip over Christmas. And she's like, "Okay, fine." So she goes, and it turns out to be her like, the number basically an Agatha Christie, like, the number 1 mystery writer of all time who's written 99 books. And it's also her idol. And so she gets there, but then also her arch nemesis, another writer, like, gets there, and then it's like their family. And so then all these you've got this crazy cast of characters, and then, someone goes missing. So it's fun. It's so
I
much fun.
think I had finished book 2 of the Zodiac Academy,
Mhm.
and you had just finished that, and I was like, "Oh, I wanted to read it." I couldn't decide which one to read, and
Yeah.
you're like, "Go for book 3." But
Save it for December, like, read it this
okay.
December. It's cute.
Maybe I'll do it for Christmas in July.
Ooh, that could be fun, I like that. We're
Yeah.
doing Christmas in July, just spoiler alert. So, yeah. Alright, you go. What's another one?
So I had said, Zodiac Academy, but we've kind of already covered that. I kind of lumped them together, and I can't
Yeah.
believe that I put Zodiac Academy and not
I
uh,
know.
Sarah J. Maas.
I know,
I'm just
I know 'cause
surprised.
I know how much you love the Crescent City novels,
I really did.
so it's okay.
So
They're there. They're honorable mentions.
yes,
Um,
but I think that it's the genre of urban fantasy that I
yeah,
really
you
like
really
in
like
both
that.
of those. So
That makes sense, and
mhm,
that is exactly what it is, and I think what I do like about Zodiac Academy, it was easier to jump into the world, because I do feel
mhm.
like in Crescent City, like, every single person that I tell to read it, I'm like, "You have to read it, it's amazing," but you might not understand what anything until, like, 150 pages, and people look at you like,
I thought that I had picked up, like, book 3 or something, because 'cause I'm like,
"Yeah,
"What is happening?" I think I texted you and was
mhm,
like, "Did I miss something here? Is my book short pages?" But
nope."
no, it just dumps you into the
It
world, and
just
it's like,
dumps you into the
figure
world.
out what's going on.
That is
Yeah,
exactly what she does, so which is
yeah.
so funny because in her other 2 series, the
Don't do
world building is nicer,
that.
but yeah, so
Throws you into the deep end, which I think in the end, it works
it
out,
did work.
but at the beginning, it was like, "What is happening here?"
Yeah, I was like, "Where what have I decided to do? Have I made a horrible mistake reading this?" So,
Well,
yeah.
that was after you had talked me into reading another Sarah J. Maas series,
I
and I was like,
know,
"Oh my gosh, what did you do?"
I know, but now aren't you so glad you did?
I am, because it
I
was really
win!
good. That's all
Alright,
that matters.
so my last one is one that actually has not been released yet, but Book of the Month had it as an early release, and I paused my Book of the Month to save money, but Emily got it, and then she read it real fast and gave it to me, but it's Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney, and I am still thinking about this one too. Was I mean, I've read, I think, most of Alice Feeney's books. I have a couple from maybe 3 from Kindle Unlimited that I haven't ever read, but of the ones I've read, I've always been happy except for one. I could not stand Daisy Darker. I'm still mad about Daisy Darker. I think she tried
And
to do
her
something that she
her
wasn't
books are
ready.
thrillers, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And this one, like, the twists and everything were so good. Like, it's one of those where at the end you're like, "Wait, what?" And, it was like one of those twists where it was hiding in plain sight.
Ooh, I
But
love those.
so it's like one of those where you wanna turn around and go reread it and be like, "Okay." And there's another one of hers, was it Sometimes I Lie? That was another one that
I
did
did
that.
read that one.
Like, where
Mhm.
I was just like, I just had to pause and be like, "Wait, I have to rethink the whole book now because of this one tiny little detail."
That's how I
And I
felt
love that.
with that book. The guy who wrote The Maidstone?
I don't know.
Maidenstone?
You're gonna have
Okay,
to look
now
it
I
up.
have to do some
Look it up. But this one,
quick
I will
reading.
say, highly recommend. The reason I did not like Daisy Doctor, I think Daisy Darker was an homage to And Then There Were None, and I will say, do not try to
Mess with greatness.
don't mess with greatness unless you can do it well, and she just could not do it well. I have so many issues that I would love to talk about with that book where I'm like, "This could not possibly happen." And that's excluding the supernatural elements that were in it
Mhm.
too. But I'm just saying that it just was not well done. Like, leave Agatha Christie alone.
Alone.
And Then There Were None is one of my top favorite books of all time. And, like, that was my first Alice Feeney, and I'm like, "I don't think I like her." And then Emily was like, "No,
Someone
no, no."
convinced you.
And then Emily, like, read, I think, Sometimes I Lie. She's like, "You it's real." Like, this is the thing about Emily. She won't sell a book. She's very like, "Yeah, I really enjoyed it." And then you have to read between the lines, like, does she really want me to read it? Because she doesn't wanna overhype anything, I don't think. And so then I read, I was like, "Oh my gosh," and she's like,
I
"I
always
know."
feel like, though, if she recommends a book,
It must
I'm
be
gonna
good.
like it.
Yeah.
Like, that's she's very hard to
Yes.
please with her
Yes.
writing.
Whereas me, you know,
It's a
it's a
crapshoot.
hit or miss. I am a five-star whore, so there we go. But yeah, but
And
I
the book I was thinking of was The Silent Patient
from
by
what's his
Alex
name?
Michaelis.
Oh my gosh, I've read all of his books, and I almost put the one that came out this year,
The
which
Fury.
I almost put that, it's in my top 10 for the year
Mhm.
because I really liked it, and I don't remember anything I remember one thing that happens, That made me
I've
really
only
happy.
been a silent patient of his, so I need to get on it.
The Maidens was not I did not like it as much as The Silent Patient.
And I think that's what I heard, and so
Yeah.
that put me off of
But
reading his book.
this one I did like. Not maybe not quite as much, but pretty close. Like, I was like, "Okay." Which, if we wanna do some honorable mentions, let me go to my Goodreads favorites of, because I did have more, and I'll just list them if I can
Well, when
find
you
it.
have 120 books, then you have to have
I know,
lots of good books.
let's see here, 2024 faves, where are they? Mm,
Okay, so I have one that came out
okay.
that was it's the A Rip Through Time series
I feel like
by
you've
Kelly
told me about
Armstrong.
is this the one that you were
I was
just
telling
texting about?
in book club
Ye
chat
yes.
about it. Um, the one that came out this year was Disturbing the Dead, but it's a
Okay.
lady who, through a series of events, ends up back in time, I think like in the 1800s in Scotland, I believe.
Mhm.
And so she's working with she doesn't go back in time in her body, she gets transported into what is a thieving maid's body.
Oh,
So it's a maid who has a bit of a past. And so
interesting.
she works for a doctor who is also the undertaker.
Hmm.
So they're solving mysteries in modern day, she's a detective.
Oh.
So she's going back in time as this thieving maid. So she has this reputation
Hmm.
and working for the undertaker, figuring out different things. It's really good. This one
That's
that
cool.
was out this year was, kind of like the Egyptian curses. So they
Ooh,
bring back a mummy from Egypt, and then some stuff happens.
interesting. I like
So,
that. That sounds good. I
that
might
was
have
a
to
good
read
one.
that. I'm not as time travel-y yet as you
And
guys.
that's what I was like, I know I feel like Emily might like it because she
Oh, yeah,
does like time
definitely.
travel,
Hey, but
but
I'm gonna
sometimes
read
time travel can
Outlander.
be meh.
I'm gonna read
Yes,
Outlander, and
and
there's time travel.
Outlander Outlander, I think, supersedes any type of category or genre. Like, it is just its own
Its own thing.
genre because it has romance, it has action, it has
Mhm.
fantasy, like, there's so much there.
Yeah. Um,
Okay.
alright, so some honorable mentions, Darling Girls by
Oh.
Sally Hepworth. I really liked that. And then, these aren't on the list, The Heiress by Rachel Hawkins, right?
Mhm.
Because I loved The Wife Upstairs. I did not like the one that was, like, on a boat in
The
an island. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, and the Air
The Heiress was the one
Heiress?
this year, and it was
Okay.
really good. And by the way, I don't remember anything that happened, but I remember I really liked it. And then the other one, a nonfiction one, which we talked about on we were talking about self-improvement books, um, Never Split the Difference. That one was definitely up there. And then The Teacher by Frida McFadden. Even though I hate anything that suggests, like, a teacher-student relationship, I
Mhm.
allow it in Zodiac Academy because she's college, and he's only a
And
few years
that
older.
I've had to, like, "Okay, that's
Yeah,
okay,"
right.
but
But
I
this,
also have issues with that.
where there's potential high school adult, I do not like
Mhm.
that. And so it made me really uncomfortable for a lot of the book. However, the ending was so good. It was such a good twist where, again, it was like, she did not hide this, but you missed it. And it was so good. So I had to that one is on my honorable mentions because I'm still so impressed with that. So those are my honorable
Oh,
mentions. There we go.
Miss Morgan's Book Brigade was pretty good,
Yeah.
and I had read that on a whim because whenever a friend and I went to go see Sally Hepworth
Yep.
in Waco at Fabled Bookstore,
I should have
and
gone.
she had picked up this book, the Miss Morgan's Book Brigade, and then I saw it was available at the library, so I'm like, "Go for it."
Mhm.
And so I listened to it, and it's a historical fiction about, a person who goes over I think it's World War II, um, but she goes to create a library. Can't remember
Oh,
if it's World War I or World War II. It might be World War I, but she goes over to the war, and as part of her war efforts, she's there to build a library
well, that's cool.
to kinda help with the civilians who are going through all of this. So, it was an interesting read.
That's good.
But yeah. So, Do you have a goal for 2025 now that we've talked about 2024?
I do. I've set it lower. I put 75 books because I really do I wanna not rush through books. I mean, sometimes I will, because if it's a thriller and, you just have to know, but otherwise, I want to get away from that urgency that I think it really started the year that I wanted to hit 200 books,
Mhm.
and I did, and then I hit 275 the next year,
That's so
and
many books.
it's so many books, but that's literally all I did. It was during the COVID years, so it makes a little bit more sense when you hear that, but at the same time, I was rushing through every single one of those, and I don't wanna do that. I feel like I am getting back to just let's just enjoy it, and if you read a couple of
Mhm.
chapters before bed, like, that's amazing. That's what I wanna rediscover that kind of way
Joy.
of reading. Yeah,
Mhm.
that not rushing, because I am very efficient and I like to get things done in a timely manner, but
And you like
reading
checklist, right?
and I like checklists.
Mhm.
"Oh, okay, finished a book. I've already finished 2 books this year." I like that, but I'm like, "No, you don't have to do that."
Mhm.
So, I'm trying not to. What
And
about you? What's
I
your
I
goal?
also set my goal lower. So after hitting the 100 books, I was like, "I don't know if I wanna have that pressure to do it again."
Yeah,
If I hit it, great, but I don't
yeah,
want the pressure.
same.
So I set mine for 80,
Yeah,
but that's kind of an arbitrary number. I think one of the things that I wanted to do was do our book bingo, which
yes,
is up on our Instagram. If you see our bingo card there, I wanted to get a full blackout. That's my goal.
love it.
So,
That's on my list too, which will be tricky since we're not repeating, although I have seen some other people put out goals and they are insane, where
yes.
I'm like, "There's no way." Like, for the record, we made ours. It has 25 spots because I was trying to keep in mind we were trying to keep in mind what's most people aren't necessarily gonna read. 25 is a high goal for
It's a
some
high
people,
number. Yeah.
and so, I mean, there were years where I only read, like, 30 books as an
Mhm.
adult. So, I'm just saying we wanted one that would be attainable, and so even the things that we chose, we wanted interesting things, but we also some people, it sounds like they want to challenge in very specific ways. I wanted to encourage people, well, maybe you only read physical books. Well, maybe you give an ebook a try, an audio book, just to
And
challenge all of us.
that is one of my goals is to do, like I said, 10 physical books this year. And then our local bookstore, neighbor bookstore in downtown McKinney Square, they had a challenge where it was read 3,000 pages, 6,000 or 9,000.
Ooh.
And I was like, okay, I'm going to set a goal to read 3,000 physical pages.
Oh, cool.
So that was something else a little bit more tangible because I was
I
like,
like that.
that's 10 300-page books basically.
Yeah, that's
And I was like,
perfect.
that seems
That's
manageable.
definitely manageable.
So,
So I like that. I
so
like
do you have
that.
any books that you already want to read for next year?
I do. I mean, besides all of Holly Martin's books, because she's our favorite, or one of our favorites, I wanna do those. I know you're also looking forward to this. I know that Emily is not. I think Allie is looking forward to it too. Onyx Storm, I am looking
Yes.
forward to that. I'm probably not as excited as other people because we've debated this recently about whether Xaden was better than 4 and Divergent, and we are on different sides for that because
I
I
am
love
team
4.
Zayden.
I am team 4, give me 4. Um, so anyway, although I'm still mad at how that series ended, but that's a whole 'nother issue. Um, but I am excited for that.
That one's on my list too.
I want to finish Zodiac Academy
Okay.
because I think I had only read 5 books, and I've been slowly rereading them, and I'm in book 4 waiting for Leyna to continue.
Hint, hint.
Yeah. It's fine though, like, no, I got plenty of other books to read. I looked at so the Tessa Bailey, who we're gonna meet and take a picture
Yay!
with, Dream Girl Drama, that's the book we're getting, right? I think so.
I honestly no, I
I looked up
know
what's
that
coming
it
out,
has,
and
like,
that was the
hockey.
name. I think this is it. So, if
Okay.
not, well, then it's not that book. Um, then I did see that Frederick Bachman has another one coming
Ooh, I
out.
like him.
So, My Friends, and then so I have read most of Colleen Hoover's books, and I know not everyone loves Colleen Hoover. I have no intentions of reading Layla, which is weird and creepy, and her, like, fantasy one that she wrote with some other people, I think. I'm never, never, I'm not doing that. But I have one of her, like, regular books that I have not read, just one, Without Merit,
Okay.
and so I wanna read that one because it's the only one of hers that I would say is, like, her general book her normal book style that I haven't read. Alright, your turn!
I have a couple. So Onyx Storm,
Mhm.
and then Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. So that's the next in the series.
Gotcha.
And we meet the main character in Just for the Summer.
Okay.
So that's
Cool.
she's already been introduced.
Nice.
Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab.
Oh, I did see that she had a new one coming out, or
And it
she
looked pretty interesting. So I'm excited for that. I want to say it was vampires,
Ooh,
but I can't
I
remember
like
for sure.
hers.
Um, Vera Wong has another book out. So
Ooh,
Vera Wong's Guide to Snooping on a Dead Man
ooh.
by Jesse Q. Sutana.
Well, that sounds good.
Sutanto. And then The Love Haters by Catherine Center.
Okay. I wanna
And
read more Catherine Sinner as well.
I just really like the books.
I
I like
have, like
her.
remember, like, after we talked about that book, I went and looked, and I had, like, 3 other ones that I haven't read,
Mhm.
like, in my house that I got from Book of the Month, so I have no
They
excuse.
are definitely good.
Mhm.
Um, and the last one was James by Percival Everett, which was
Hmm.
the 2024 Goodreads Book of the Year.
Oh,
I
I don't
have
even
written
know what
down
that
here.
is. Look at
So
you,
that
that's
was
good.
we had talked about it.
Really?
So, because it is Huckleberry Finn, Tom
Oh, that's
Sawyer,
that one that we were talking
and
about.
James's Gem. So we had talked
Gotcha.
about for book club reading James,
That's where that
but then
yeah, now I
also
remember.
reading Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn. Because
Yeah.
I've read Huckleberry Finn, but it was for school years ago.
Mhm. I
So I probably read
never
it, like, fast.
I never read it, and I read a kid's version of Tom Sawyer that I'm
Okay.
pretty sure was not the actual book.
I think I've read the kids version too, like, that had it was
It had
that
pictures.
weird white cover. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And was he, like, doing the whitewashing thing on the cover?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's the same one.
Yeah,
So,
probably.
yeah. So, yeah, no, I haven't read it either, but we're excited too to read, with our book club, which I mean, we or may not talk about them at some point on here, but the Anne of Green Gables series, we're gonna do that. So that'll be fun. I'm really excited to do that. And
I've never
then
read those, so I'm very excited.
well, so it was so funny when I looked, I think I've read 6 of the 8,
Oh my
maybe?
gosh.
Or 5 of the 8, but it was years ago, so
Mhm.
I need to reread them, and I definitely I know which ones I liked better than others, but they're delightful, so I can't wait
Yeah,
to
I
reread
can't
them,
wait.
and then we're reading Sense and Sensibility, right? And Emma,
Yes, and Emma,
so
which
that'll be
Emma is,
fun.
I think, my mom's favorite book.
Really? Oh, I
Mhm.
love it. I love
And I
all
don't
of
think
Jane
I've ever
Austen.
I was never a Jane Austen fan, and I
Mhm.
think that after what did we read?
We did Pride and Prejudice and Persuasion.
Persuasion. I think after Persuasion, I was like, "Okay, I can get behind this." I think
Yeah,
I had read Pride and Prejudice so many times for school.
yeah,
Like, I had to read it in
that's
high
fair.
school, had to read it in college, and I was just like, "I'm over this."
Yeah.
And just reading it for enjoyment was nice.
Yeah. Well, and I will say of them all, because 'cause I've read them all, Pride and Prejudice, like, I get why people are attracted to the story because in many ways, I feel like it is the most traditional of the stories.
Mhm.
You've got, like, a more traditional love story, I think, whereas the other ones don't follow the same path. There's, like, more to them, and if people don't even read them, then you're missing out. But, yeah, I would say Pride and Prejudice is definitely like, Persuasion is probably my favorite, and then I Emma was the first one I read, and I loved it, which is why I was like, "Oh, I wanna read more of them," and I loved Sense and Sensibility. I love that movie. That movie is one of my favorite movies of all time. So,
We'll
it's
have
so good.
to read the books, then go watch the movies.
Yes, yes, definitely, and then maybe next year we'll read 2 more because there's or wait, well, like, are there even 2 more after that? Northanger Abbey. Maybe we just have 1 more. Well, Lady Susan, but that one does not read like the others, and it's not finished technically, but anyway, we'll see. We'll see.
We'll see.
So
We'll have to post what because we have the first couple of books that we're gonna read for book club, I
do
think
we?
for January, February, March,
What
I
did
think.
what did we pick for February and March? I don't
Now
remember.
you now you're asking me to
I
remember
know, I'm
something?
like, gotta go to my notes and see.
If we didn't have the notes app, where would we be?
I know, and shared notes are where it's
Mhm.
at.
And we
Um
share a note with our book club, so it's kinda nice to see,
Mhm.
but now I can't find it.
No, it just says Outlander in the Last Battle for January. We just have "and Anne of Green Gables" and "Anne of
Okay,
Avonlea," so we
then
do
we
need
have
to
some work to do,
we
book
do have
club.
some
Our
work
book club
to do.
still hasn't met because everybody's been sick and icky, so
Yep, so hopefully we
I
will
feel like
soon.
December and January are just hard months to
They
meet
are.
when you have little kids
Mhm.
especially.
Yes, definitely. Well, so should we tell them what our next episode is gonna be about?
Yeah, let's do it. Go for
Okay.
it.
Okay, so our next episode now I'm like, "Wait, what is it?" Okay,
Books
this is
that
the one
made us.
oh, yeah, this is why. Books that made us ugly cry. So that should be
And I think
fun.
we should also include movies in this
Oh, yes, let's do that too. Books and
because
movies that made us ugly cry.
I'm not a huge crier for books, but I'll cry for a movie. But there are some books that I have cried at, so
Have you looked at my notes yet on
I
that
have
one?
not. I've
Okay.
been taking my own
We've
notes and
read
I'm like, "Okay."
we have read one of them as a book club, and,
I
oh,
I know what it is.
do you? There's an airplane involved and a craft.
Oh, I was not thinking of that one.
Oh, I wanna know what you were thinking of, but I guess y'all will find out next
Next
week,
week.
and I will find out as soon as we stop recording. Hey, the perks of being on this side of the camera. Woohoo. So, that
Alright.
was fun. I feel like
Well,
we're ready for this year.
I'm definitely ready. I have all kinds of events planned. I think, I'm excited for that too, in addition to doing books, and
Mhm.
you and I have the Tessa Bailey,
And then we
taking a
might
picture.
get tattoos at this
Yes, there's a new
this bookstore
bookstore in
opening
Denton,
thing. Yeah.
Plot Twist? Is that what
Yes.
it's called?
Plot
It's a
Twist Book Bar, I think?
Yeah, so it's a bar as well as a bookstore, which sounds kind of fun.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah,
And they're doing an event where you can get, like, a drive-by tattoo essentially.
which I'm all for.
Yeah, I am too. I think that'll be really fun. So, yeah,
One of my goals, this is so dumb, not dumb, it's one of my goals was to get another tattoo for 2025.
I
I
was
have I
planning
have
to as
my
well.
personal goals, and one of my friends gifted me it's like an art drawing thing,
Uh-huh.
and it was like, "What do you wanna do more of? What do you wanna do less of?" And my more was more tattoos, so there we
Yes.
go. We have to go to this book event so we
So
can get a tattoo.
we might as well get a tattoo while we're there. I know. I am totally here for that. So, yeah.
Sounds fun.
All right. Well,
Alright, well, until next week,
yes.
we'll see y'all later.
All right. Bye.
Bye.